Welcome back to the Postpartum Plan podcast. This podcast is designed to support and empower you through postpartum. Whether you're expecting, in the early postpartum days, or beyond, this space is for you. I'm your host, Madison Fugere, a dedicated postpartum doula and pediatric sleep consultant, striving to help parents feel confident and supported in their parenting journey. Each week, I'm sharing practical tips and expert advice to help you navigate all the postpartum things with confidence. Well, as much confidence as you can. Let's embark on this journey together, making your parenthood as serene and supportive as possible. Alexandra was born and raised in New York into a big Italian family. She works as an engineer in the aerospace industry and has moved around New England with her husband, Will, cat Hickey, and dog Brody since graduating. They just welcomed their newest member of their family, little Miss Lila, at the beginning of 2023. And I had the amazing pleasure of working with them as their postpartum doula after Alex reached out for some support during her postpartum period. Alex, I'm super excited to have you here today and to share your birth and postpartum story, especially since you were the one who really kind of was interested in hearing all of these birth and postpartum stories. So you kind of started this mini series for me. So I'm excited to have you on.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm really glad to talk to you and catch up with you because it's been a minute. But yeah, no, I was super excited about the podcast and I basically inundated you with all my ideas.
Yes, it was great. So for those of you who are listening, like right when I was starting this idea of doing the podcast, I was supporting Alex's family. And so I was like, if you have like topic ideas or anything, and she's like, oh my gosh, you should do like birth and postpartum stories. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't really know who I'd bring on, but sure. And like, you were like, I'll come. And next thing I knew, like I had all these people that were like, yeah, I'll share my story. I'll share this. And everybody's stories are so different that it makes it like endless stories to tell. And I feel like everyone can relate to something.
Yeah, it's really nice to, I don't know, from my perspective, just hearing other people and like what they went through. And I don't know, it's, you hear either the horror stories or everything was great, but you don't hear like anything in between. So
right.
Interesting.
Right, exactly. So, I guess we can jump right in. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about like you and Will and pregnancy and kind of like what life was like, and then we'll get going from there.
What life was like before this little Lila came into our life. Yeah. So yeah, me and my husband Will, right? Like we've been bouncing around the East Coast, the Northeast Coast for a bit, for work. And, we're actually high school sweethearts. So we've been together for almost 14 years now. We've been married for just 5 years. And, we always wanted like a family, and then just about it took us a while though to like get pregnant. So it was pretty stressful because we're like pretty type A people, and we're like, we can, follow the schedule, make it work. And that's not how it works. So it doesn't work also in having a baby, but I'll get to that later. So yeah, we have been together, and, we knew we always wanted like this big family. I come from a big Italian family. And so the pregnancy was super easy once we actually got there, but I like, so grateful, like health wise, everything was so easy. I thought I would be like sick all the time. Nothing. Really, it was just, I kept thinking the worst was going to happen. Like, oh, something's going to go wrong. Something's going to go wrong. I was like definitely scared of telling family and friends because I was just like, this makes it real.
Yeah.
I took it one trimester at a time. So basically I was, in the first trimester, and I was like, I'm not even going to read the book yet on what's happening next until I get closer. So one thing at a time. And then right at the end of pregnancy, I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen now. Like, what do I do now? Like, where's the book? And of course there's like a million books, a million resources, but oh my gosh, that's so overwhelming. And now I'm like 30 something weeks pregnant, trying to be like, okay, waking up in the middle of the night, Googling how to change a diaper, like literally happened.
Right. And like, I feel like that's so common to an extent. And like part of the reason that I do what I do and why I wanted to start this podcast was because everyone, I say everyone generalistically, but like so many people create like these birth plans and, prepare themselves for like all the stuff that they want to do and like how they want to have these births. But like, what about postpartum stuff? And like you said, you have to take it bit by bit. And so you're really focusing on your pregnancy when you're pregnant. And then all of a sudden, you can't really just all of a sudden deal with postpartum when it pops up. Like you need to kind of prepare for that.
Yeah, that was so It was a big, like, rude awakening call, I think. Just kind of even realizing, like, going into it, like, I had no idea what was going to happen next. I mean, the baby that I knew in my life is now going to be 21. She's my younger sister. So it's been a while since I've been around a baby. Like, toddlers, that's what you think of, but like a newborn, like I just had no idea what to expect. And me and my husband are both like, it's fine. My husband's thinking he'll take like a week, maybe two off, and then he'll go back to work. It'll be fine. And we'll just have schedules. We know, like they eat this, they eat, they sleep, it's fine. They'll be super easy. Well, it's definitely not that easy. And to make things even worse, everything was healthy in my baby except she was very stubborn and breech, so I had to get a C-section. So scheduled date, which does go well with my plannings, like date in the book, we got it.
Yep.
But 6 days before my C-section, my mother-in-law passed away suddenly. There was no warning or anything. I was working literally, checklist of everything I'm supposed to do with work before I take off. And my husband walks in, I'm in the middle of a meeting and I look at him and I see on his face something. I just like, will never forget this moment. He just goes, my mom died. And I'm like, what? I was 36 weeks pregnant and I was obviously devastated because, we've been together a long time. So she's another mother to me.
Yeah.
Such a big part of my life. And it's just something so crazy about becoming parents and losing a parent at the same exact time. It's just been really, really difficult. And I was also obviously like very stressed I was going to go into labor or something because I was
Right.
just a mess.
Right. And not that there's a good time to ever lose somebody so close, but to be doing it at that time where you're already so emotional and anxiety provoked and, trying to focus on this excitement. And I know we've had conversations about like it's hard to sometimes focus on all of like the happiness and joy of bringing a little one home and going through the end bit of pregnancy when there's so much grief around. And we always jokingly said that Lila has had so much on her shoulders trying to keep the happiness up in the family. She was the little light of it all, but it was I can only imagine. I mean, yeah, there's never a good time, but that's, one of the worst times that it could be, even, especially since you said there was no indication. You didn't have any preparation for any of it.
Yeah, it was definitely out of nowhere, and I think it was definitely mixed roller coaster of emotions. But it was really hard because people are like, you're gonna be so happy, like congratulations, but also I'm so sorry for your loss. I mean, we were getting nonstop cards to the house, and I didn't know if I was opening up a congratulations on the birth of your daughter or I'm so sorry for your loss. Like it was insane. Um, and so I got a C-section on a Monday, and I got out of the hospital that Thursday. The next day was the wake, and then the day after that was the funeral. So it was just a lot, and my husband, because of that, the whole first month he was obviously grieving, but his mother was the executor of her good friend's estate, who this friend has dementia. So it was really taking care of this woman who doesn't live in the same state as us. So he had to get all of her bank account information, her aides, make sure they have everything they need for her, and take care of her dogs. So that was the whole first month of Lila's life, and after losing my mother-in-law. And then after the first month, this woman that we were taking care of passed away. And now my husband had to rush away. So 1 month old, we are literally at our house, and my mom is visiting, and my husband comes to the room and he goes, she just passed away. I have to go immediately to her house. It's a 3 to 4 hour drive because they're going to take her house. They're going to put her dogs in a shelter. We're not going to be able to get in there if I don't get there today. So he just packed up and left. And I mean, thank God my mom was there, but then it was another few weeks of him funeral arrangements, and he was gone. He didn't know how he was going to come back, and it was so extremely stressful. But you were with us at that point,
Yeah.
which was literally a saving grace.
It really was. I mean, I remember walking in and being like, "Oh, how was the weekend with your mom?" And you being like, "Well, thank gosh she was here because Will's gone." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And you told me, and I remember looking at you and being like, "Y'all can't catch a break." It was just so hard and so crazy to think about all the things that y'all were trying to handle. And like you said, it's so stressful because you, as a mom, are trying to take care of Lila and do your best, but also taking care of you after a C-section. And then, you have family there, and whether you get along with family or you don't, that's another thing to add to your plate. And then, you know, to try and give Will space to grieve and to support him and your self space to grieve. But then also, there's got to be some resentment to an extent towards him because he has to leave and go. But at the same time, you totally get it. So it's like so many emotions all at once that you can't even pinpoint how you feel.
I can't. I was getting questions. So they make you take these like postpartum surveys and stuff. And I swear, like I was just like, what's your feel like what are you feeling? And I'm like, I could not tell you. It depends on the minute. Am I happy? Am
Right.
I sad? Am I crying? Who knows? So those are really hard to take. And they had me actually take some surveys where it wasn't like for postpartum, it was just like a general like, how are you feeling today thing. I'm like, okay, there needs to be like something on here that says, hey, I'm postpartum. Also, I am suffering loss. Like, otherwise, like they were going to commit me. Like, I don't know what was going to happen. Like,
Right. Right. And
there's
I
so much
mean,
going on.
there's so much emotion to it already, and your hormones are high, and so much that it's impossible. And we talked about, Will's dad was there, but your whole family and most of your extended family is not nearby. So I mean, I still remember getting a email confirmation from in like the morning when I woke up one morning being like, "Oh, cool, I have a new inquiry call for a postpartum family." And typically I have it as like estimated due date on the form. And I remember being like, "Oh, she's already born. Okay." And I get on the call and you're like, "Yeah, so we're looking for some support and like overnights and blah, 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 blah." And you were like, "Yeah, and well, my mother-in-law just passed away." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And I'm like thinking about this. And then I just could tell that you were like, I need someone, right? And you just needed a support system and you didn't have that. And I was like, this is my time to shine. And I remember just being like, "Okay, well, like I can come tomorrow night if you want." And I'm like, "You can talk to your husband about it, like let me know." And you're like, "No, I'm making the decision. We'll see you tomorrow." Okay, great. Sounds
That's
awesome.
exactly what happened. Yeah. Even to go back a little bit further, we were sitting, I was sitting on the floor in her nursery and my husband was in the rocking chair with her. She is just crying. We're both exhausted and wiped and just like we were just everything at the same time. And I was like, I read somewhere that there's this thing called a postpartum doula. I think we should get it. He's like, I don't know what that is. I don't care. Just do it.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
well, do you care about like how much it costs? He's like, I literally don't care. Just book it.
Right.
I'm like, okay.
And it's crazy because so many people don't even know that's a thing. So like for you to have done your research at least to that extent, you got yourself good, and it worked out so perfectly that I had the availability, and that y'all reached out. And I remember like a week or so later you were telling me how you were like, "Oh, I sent a couple people inquiries and like emails, but because I had like the form to just fill out and to book an appointment rather than having to do a back and forth." And I was the first call you had, and you're like, "Sure, we seem to mesh. Why not?" And I mean, I think we did, but it's just so true because you were like, "I just need someone. I don't know what it is, but I need it." And it just makes me so happy to know that like you had the idea of what a postpartum doula was in some capacity so that you knew to look for it, because so many people don't. And then I find that when I tell people what I do, I get so often, "Oh, I wish I knew that this existed when I had my baby," kind of a thing.
Yeah, I honestly wish I remember where it was probably like what to expect when expecting or something. Like I tried to
Yeah.
power read, what to expect when you actually have a baby one, in like a week. But that didn't work. Just in case but yeah, I just like remember this thing and I was like, I'm gonna look it up. I have no idea what I'm doing. But really just any support. And I, so we met you the first day, and I remember my husband left and like bare minimum information. He knew nothing. We video chatted, so I actually knew what you looked like and everything.
Yeah.
But my husband, you left, and he goes, I was expecting Miss Doubtfire to walk in.
and walks 22-year-olds like little giggly bubbly me. I try to bring the energy and the excitement.
You definitely do, and you were exactly what we needed. I mean, you watching you with Lila and just like seeing you like unfazed by anything she did, and just like the energy you had, like it made me realize like, okay, like I can do this. Like it gave me
Yeah.
confidence. Just like watching like you with her, I was just sitting there. I was like, this okay. Like I feel like this is okay, and this is gonna work because like I mentioned, we're type A people, so we wanted to just like be like, here, we do this, and then it's done. But Lila doesn't listen yet. It doesn't go like that. That's not how, like these things can't plan. And my husband who said he was going to be home for 1 to 2 weeks, he's still home.
Right.
He took the whole leave that he got through the state, so 12 weeks. Thank God. I mean, honestly, that's been such a lifesaver, and he definitely needed it beyond just with the newborn, but all of the other stuff we were going through with his mom,
Yeah.
cool stuff with the estate. So it's been time that we definitely needed, that we were really grateful to have. Really scared to go back to work.
Yeah.
So that's a whole new transition, but I think this whole thing has just been one day at a time, one step at a time. That's been like my mantra to get through this.
Yeah, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time. I actually just texted a client who just gave birth this morning, Matt, who was having some anxieties. I'm like, just one thing at a time. It's gonna be all right, you know? Uh,
Exactly. It's some days it's, you could think a day and ahead, some days it's an hour. Like it's okay.
yeah, yeah, I know for sure. Well, I feel like we jumped the gun because we got to postpartum, but like, do you want to tell us about, obviously you were pregnant, found out about this loss, and then kind of what did like the birth and all of that kind of look like for you?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's go back to this part. So,
Rewind.
I had a C-section just to add to the drama. So they make you like shower yourself beforehand, so you're like clean through surgery. Our power was out because there was a storm, so I had to take a nice ice cold shower that morning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been bad luck for like 2 months. Another thing, you can prepare as much food as you want, but if you put it in a freezer and then your outlet trips, all of your food will go bad, which does happen. It happened to us. So
I cannot. You guys
doesn't matter
literally
how
every time you're telling these stories, I'm like, yep, I knew about that one, and I never piled them all up. Y'all have all the stories. Oh my gosh.
just like don't even try to plan. That's what I learned. Again, plans, just throw them out, just roll with it. So yeah, got to the hospital bright and early. I think I was supposed to be there by like 6. They got me prepped. I was there. It was like a pretty quiet floor. Everyone in the hospital was absolutely amazing. And at 8:12, she was born. It was honestly so fast, so easy. My birth plan, really, I didn't have one because I just thought they were kind of silly. Definitely postpartum plans are so much more important if you ask me. Um, I just wanted to breastfeed and I wanted to be close to her, and that was kind of my two big things. I did an epidural, which was incredibly difficult to like actually get in that position, so they can do that for you. Um, so I actually don't think you have a choice when you have a C-section. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
You don't have a choice. Just ignore me. I still have no brain.
it's
Um,
okay.
but yeah, so that was a definitely interesting experience. I had never had major surgery before, any surgery. So that was my first time in a hospital for a while. I was so grateful for the people there, like the nurses and doctors were all amazing. And I had no idea what to expect because of COVID. They don't let you go ahead of time anymore and like meet people or
Mm.
just like get used to the atmosphere. But we didn't want to leave, honestly. Like the people were so great, and they were just constant support. Lila was super healthy. She was awesome. And yeah, she was just like a classic newborn. I think the main thing was, again, just like how great everyone was. But we were breastfeeding the whole time. So breastfeeding all through the entire hospital stay, and everything was going really great. We get home and things are no longer going great with breastfeeding. And I had no idea what to do. So I called like the hospital because they're like, yeah, we're here for you. I had something through insurance to like help, they had like consults. But it was all like phone calls. It was really, really difficult to know what to do. So we're like, you know what? We got enough going on. Let's just do like pumping, let's do bottles. I was terrified of pumping. I had no idea what to do. My husband literally read the instructions and explained it to me because I was so overwhelmed. Because I never taught us in the hospital, and that's just crazy because like we were there for 4 days and we didn't know how to bottle feed. We didn't know how to do anything. So, Madison came into our lives, you came into our lives, and you literally saved the day because we had no idea what we were doing.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I remember walking in and being like, you were pumping at one point. I'm like, "Oh, this girl's got it. She's killing it already." And I think that that was such a common theme when I came, because I know even Will, when he would be with us and asking questions and things like that, his first thing when he looked at me was like, I have no idea what I'm doing and I just don't want to mess up. And I'm like, that's such a common theme. That's totally fair. But like every time, like he ended up feeding Lila a bottle when I was there, and I was like, dude, you're doing it perfectly. You're paste feeding her. And he's like, I'm doing what? And I was like, you're doing it. Like, I don't know if you just knew it, but you're doing everything perfectly right. And like he burped her. And like, typically in all the movies and stuff, you throw the baby over your shoulder and you burp them. But I love the like cradle the neck, face, jaw kind of space, and being able to burp them in your lap because you can sit them up a lot more straight. And I remember I was about to tell him like, oh, this is like a really great way to burp. And I look over and he's already doing it. And I was like, dude, you already know what you're doing. And you with the pumping, you were like, I don't know, like this, that. And then I'm like, well, that's perfect. And you're using the right flange sizes. Like, look at this. It was such a common theme of like just the reassurance that I think you guys needed too. Like being type A people, like I am too. I totally get it. But sometimes it's just having that like third party to be like, yeah, no, you're totally right. Like you're doing that correctly. Like you're awesome. You've got it.
Yeah, you definitely helped with our confidence. That was a big one. I mean, the first time you came, we basically handed you the baby and we just asked you a million questions for like 4 hours. That was it. We, we were like, here, please handle the baby for us and answer all of our questions. I had the longest list, I remember. And every time you came over, I always had like a long list of just like random questions. Like, when can I put her on a plane? Like, I don't know anything, right? And I've never done this before. And there's too many resources out there that it's just way too overwhelming.
Yeah. And we have like, I don't know, it just with clients in general, like especially with people like y'all who, have all the questions and things like that. Like I really obviously am there to take care of Lila and take care of baby, but like it really is like a relationship and a friendship that we kind of create between us too. I mean, as we learned, Alex does not nap for the life of her. And so therefore we just would sit and talk for hours, and it was great because I feel like with sometimes with clients, like we run out of things to talk about or they don't know or things like that. But like with you, I'm like literally never had a worry in my mind that we would run out of something to talk about. Like if whether it was related to Lila and like you said, going on a plane and traveling to, oh, how's it been with Will being out of the house or like doing things, to literally talking about like, family dynamics and random stuff. Like it just worked. And that was like the huge part that I always try to do with all clients is like, it's so important that your postpartum doula is somebody that matches your vibe, because like otherwise it feels like you're entertaining and no one needs that early on.
Yes, definitely entertaining. I yelled at my husband for our first week, and everyone's at our house because again, there was a funeral going on, and it was all these people, and I was like, you can't host them, and I told them all, I was like, do not let him host. And also don't forget, I also had just had surgery, so I was doing way more than I should have been doing. Um,
Yeah.
so it's something that's real. I like someone who never had surgery before. I didn't even, they tell you don't carry anything heavy, bed rest and stuff like that. But I had to go to the wake. I was like, I have to go. So 5 days after surgery, I got in the car. I didn't drive and I didn't carry anything heavy, but I did walk around a lot. And the next day, I paid for it. I was on bed rest. I think that was it. I was still on bed rest when I spoke to you, so it was pretty soon
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah. And that was a lot. And that's something that it's like, it's so hard because you really can't compromise in those situations. And as much as you should be resting, like it would just be guilty conscience. Um, but I
It was
totally
such a
get that.
surreal experience. Just losing her and also having a baby, two things that I had never really prepared for, happening at the same time. So it honestly just didn't feel real.
Right. I mean, yeah, I can't even imagine. So it was literally, at least like the birth to an extent. I mean, you had the C-section, but like you said, you didn't have this like birth plan super planned out, that it was like, at least that went pretty smoothly, but that breastfeeding stuff was definitely rough. I know, coming home and then you were just went from this little one being a amazing latching perfect little feeder to being a bit of a stubborn little girl. Um, so that was definitely nerve-wracking, but I mean, y'all took it the way you took it, you know? Like people sometimes are so headstrong on being able to breastfeed, which is amazing and like you can work through it, but you know, for you guys to be able to give up on some of the stuff and be able to give up the control and be able to offer pumped milk or formula or things like that and not let it stress you out was something that is really difficult, I think, for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, it definitely stressed me out. I honestly had so much guilt about it. I really enjoyed breastfeeding her. Like it was a really good experience, except mentally, emotionally. Physically, however, it was terrible. After, I think it was about after the first week, she was just so aggressive. I was in so much pain. My husband was like looking at my face and he's like, you like aren't like your face is just so pained. He's like, you might want to try pumping. And I told him to support me, and he was. And I was in a lot of pain, so it was definitely the right thing to do. But pumping is pretty much the worst of both worlds. So you have all these dishes because you're doing bottles, but you have more because you have all this pumping stuff. And you also have the breast stuff going on. So I had mastitis, I had clogs, I had all these things. So it was like a full-time job. Between ice packs, heating. Oh my goodness. I had to go to the doctor twice. And one time I was by myself, so I had to throw her in the back. She cried and screamed the whole car ride there. And it was just terrible. I felt so guilty. And just it was just terrible. And that's kind of why I ended up deciding to stop pumping. I was like, I'm killing myself right now. And I just like feel like I'm not being a good mom. And out of all the things I want to do, like giving her breast milk is great, but being a good mom is way more important to me. So I had to call it quits.
And that's so, so huge. Like being able to, like you literally just said, like word for word, right? Like the most important thing to you is to be a good mom. And that's like it, right? And if, I mean, if you want to breastfeed, there's ways to get there, right? But that's not to say that it's not with a lot of work and a lot of commitment and time and possibly some pain as you go through the process. And so if that's not something that you are able to mentally work through, then like that's okay. And like, you know, they make formula for a reason and reminding yourselves those things. It's like definitely tricky. So I totally get it. But it's awesome to know that, you know, now she's being fed and you guys still have an amazing relationship, you know. And now Will's able to help too.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, we've been together for a long time. I think the one of the biggest surprising things that happened afterwards, and I don't know if it was because of the baby or all the other crap that we went through, but um he like our communication we just like kind of went down the toilet for a little bit. And we we basically had to look at each other and be like, we need to do better at this because we're not doing a good job communicating. And that was really difficult. I think we both had our own, stuff about the baby and mourning, and it was just way too many things to even put down on paper. But we basically acknowledged that we're doing a really bad job communicating and we need to fix this.
And like adding a new one to your family, whether it's your first or your fourth, like that's a huge toll on your relationship. I mean, I have some paperwork like that I do for intake with clients that asks lots of different questions. And one of them is, you know, how do you think this is going to affect your relationship with your partner? Because it really is a lot. And some people, you know, graze over it. And then other people will like answer it in such depth about like, oh, I'm really worried about this or that, or I think we're going to do really great at this, but I don't know about that. And it's something that you can guesstimate what it's going to be like, but you really don't know till you're in it. And communication is so hard because not only are you now having something else taking all of your priority and your time, but you're now sleep deprived. You're now hormonal. You're now so out of patience because this tiny human is taking and sucking literally everything out of you. And like one of the things that I find so wild that you can like kind of go as deep into it as you want is that when you have these tiny newborns, like you're giving legitimately everything you have to them, right? Like they're relying on you to live and you're not getting a single thing out of it, right? Especially for the first little while. A couple weeks in, you'll get eyes open a bit more, you'll get a coo or a caw and a smile, but like for those first few weeks when you're running off of adrenaline and sleep deprivation and trying to figure things out and hormones and you're worried that you're doing everything wrong, like you're not getting anything back. There's no relationship there. It's kind of toxic, you know?
It's a toxic relationship. You're 100% right. I mean, someone told me there was like the first social smile is going to be like you're going to warm your heart, and it really is true. Like it's just it's a blob, right? Like you're taking care of this thing that likes to cry and keep you up at night. And I felt like I tried to think about preparing, being like, okay, you're going to be sleep deprived, and you're going to be taking care of somebody. But it's hard to even just think about it like that, because it's okay, you're sleep deprived 4 weeks. So it's not like just one night you didn't get good sleep, or just 2
Right.
nights, right? It's not like you stayed up to study for an exam. This is, you are up and you're dealing with a crying baby, or you're, trying to breastfeed, or, just all these different things you're trying to pump in the middle of the night. And it's just so much on top of it, right? I didn't even expect the hormones to be that much. I mean, obviously, I was going through extra stuff at the time hormonally, but it was overwhelming. Like, I still even notice a difference in how I react to things. Like, I'm still not back to normal of like what I used to be, and who knows what that normal is. I don't
Right.
even
And
know.
who knows if you'll even get it back. People say that, like,
Right.
now you've got another human to think about, and those parental instincts are real. So, who knows if you'll ever go back to that, carefree to an extent self that, sometimes you're just going to care more now. You just have another reason for life and another thing to think about before yourself, which is so wild, but also so cool.
Yeah, and you try to think about what you're gonna be as a parent, right? Oh my gosh, like, yeah, I'll let her cry, it's fine, like, she'll be fine. I could not let her cry for, like, the first month. She was crying and I was crying. I was like, "Oh my god, I can't." And it wasn't I don't even know, I mean, a lot of it was definitely hormones, but it just, like, broke my heart. I was like, "I'm trying to do everything for you because I love you so much," and it just broke my heart when she was crying, and I just wanted to cry also.
Right, which is totally, totally valid, and it's hard to do. Um, and it's a lot of, I mean, a whole nother episode on crying because oh my gosh, there's so much to read into it. But yeah, no, it's definitely a lot. Write that one down. That'll be a new topic for us for another week.
Her crying, husband's
Right.
crying.
All the tears. Can only imagine. So if you were to like look back at kind of your birth and postpartum experience, and is there anything that you wish you would have done sooner, or anything that you will for sure do with like future children if you guys decide to have more, or anything like that, like what would you do differently? What did you love? What did you hate?
Well, I rate this pregnancy. No, I definitely think that a postpartum plan is a genius. I mean, again, I don't even know how I feel about birth plans, because I couldn't plan to have a C-section. My baby was stubborn, so that was out of my control. And so you can't really plan for that stuff. So by having a plan, I mean just kind of what you're looking for, and more of like help. Like, yeah, put the food in the freezer. That's great. Hopefully the freezer doesn't, crap out on you. Um, I think the biggest thing really, and I told my husband this, is if we're doing this again, we are having family support. Because even just having someone else here to help clean, to help cook, to do all of those things is just, it's so huge. So I want like lined up the first 2 months of life. I need someone to at least be here or to be nearby, so that we can have the support that we need. Because I can't even imagine going through this again now with another child. Like, it's going to be a
Right.
whole new experience again. I'm just going to feel very thrown by it all. But
Right.
I think that's my new mantra, is basically just, one thing at a time. But yeah, definitely the support is something I would definitely change, is having that there and readily accessible. I can't even imagine having gone through this during COVID, where, that was even harder. So I really, think about those people and feel for them.
Yeah, no, for sure, 100%. Okay. And so then kind of like my wrap up here question for you, I guess, is the one I've been asking everybody about these whole birth, postpartum stories. If you had one piece of advice and one product recommendation to tell like another new parent, what would you suggest for a piece of advice, and what would your product be?
Okay, so I'm gonna do the product first because that one's easier. Um, I
Perfect.
I thought about this, and I think I'm gonna say those like easy swaddles. Now, there's a few of them. I'll specifically say like the Sleep Pea is what we have, and even like the one that like hooks into the snoo. But don't they have the one without that, and it's really just wonderful. Swaddling, she looks adorable, but like getting her in this little pea pod, it's so easy, and anyone can do it because we did have like an aunt come over once and other people, and they do not know how to swaddle. There have not been a lot of babies recently with my family, so this is like, you know, Velcro zip. She's swaddled, and then she can sleep. So,
Right.
um,
It's huge.
yeah, it's really important. I definitely recommend at least something that's like an easy swaddle. Now that they have them, highly recommend.
Right. And
Um,
there's so many different ones that they have too. It's wild. Plus, like, why wouldn't you? It keeps them warm and kind of like still tight in. And you can like, especially the ones that are double zippers, you can like do a quick, easy diaper change in the middle of the night. It's like the most amazing thing.
Yes, definitely. And other people can do it who don't know how to swaddle. And or if you're like nervous that it's going to get loose while, they're sleeping and you don't have to watch them the whole time because they
Right.
can't
They're
understand.
because they're literal Houdinis. Like every single baby is a literal Houdini. I cannot.
Yeah, exactly. um, so yeah, my piece of advice, I think, the biggest thing that I've kind of used to help me think through this whole thing, um, is it's a stage in life. It will pass. You're never going to get it back, and you're going to miss it, right? It's just thinking about the here and the now. I'm always like a planner, and I really have found myself grounding myself to moments because she's 3 months now, and I feel like she's already so much bigger, and she's already so different, and I miss when she, used to not do these things, and she used to do different stuff and look differently, and, I already miss stuff, so I can only imagine, next week, next month, next year, so I've been trying to really ground myself in moments, and that's
And that's
pretty much
so
the big.
hard. That's so hard, especially when you are sleep deprived or, you are a type A person and you're thinking about going back to work and you're thinking about, all of these things that you have to prepare for and, get ready for coming up. It's so easy to miss out on the right now. And like I'm not even a parent, but I find that with my own clients, like before we jumped on here and I clicked record, Alex was showing me a picture of Lila and I was like, gosh, she's like huge. It's crazy. I saw you guys, I feel like just yesterday, but also like 7 years ago. But it's just, yeah, they get so big so fast. And before you know it, they're doing things that they've never done before and milestones happen. So yeah, I give you props for doing that and reminding yourself that because it's so true. It really is, but it's doesn't make it any easier.
It's not, but it helps me remember that like it is gonna pass for the good and the bad, right?
Right.
So you can take that both ways, but it does help me get
Yeah.
through both of those types of moments.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me and for also coming up with this wonderful idea of having some birth and postpartum stories to this. I think that all the listeners love hearing all the informational ones of, different professionals coming on and me chatting to myself solo while I sit in this room by myself. It's so nice to have people come on and tell these stories. And I think that I mean, I can tell from the views and from the ratings that people are definitely feeling heard and feeling really in what's the word I'm looking for? I don't even know. Heard, I guess, is the word we're going with right now. They feel heard from you guys. And so being able to share your stories and kind of understand it is really, really it makes me happy.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I'm like very supportive of you doing this and everything. Like you're gonna do amazing things, and you are just like the angel to our family. So I really appreciate everything you've done.
Oh, you guys are the best. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Postpartum Plan podcast. I hope that today's episode brought you support, relatability, and valuable insight. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review and share with any of your prenatal and postpartum friends and family. Your feedback helps us reach more parents seeking support. And if you're looking for additional resources, please feel free to connect via Instagram at Serene Moments Doula for constant information, tips, and tricks, or check out my website, www.serenemomentsdoula.com. See you next week.